I would call Mr. Robbie Stempler. Mr. Stempler, can you please introduce yourself, stating your name and address and spelling your last name?
Yes, thank you. Robbie Stempler, Stempler.
Is there a state agency that regulates these levels locally aside from the ASAM guidelines that you just spoke to?
Comar.
Okay. What does Comar stand for? Did we say this? I'm sorry if we did.
Code of something.
Okay.
Food.
I'm going to cut you off really quick. Can you tell everybody what ASAM is?
The addiction, I'm going to mess this up. Addiction Science Society of, I'm missing the word. American Society of Addiction Medicine.
We will accept that into evidence.
That's Martin Hackett.
Mr. Hackett, as this board is aware, has appeared before this board several times as an expert witness historically. I'm more than happy if Mr. Nelson wants to ask him any additional questions. I have provided a copy of his resume to Mr. Nelson, but I would ask that because of his past experience in testifying as an expert, that this board would accept him as an expert in the area of land use, design, and planning.
Mr. Nelson, any objection?
Well, I may. I see no degrees on his CV. I mean, so yeah, I do object. I'm looking at his CV. It says continuing education at community college. It talks about traffic planning. I'm not seeing any expertise in land planning, urban design. I'm seeing engineering work at Daft McCune and Walker, KCI, and CLSI. I'm not seeing land planning work. I'm not seeing a college degree. I'm not seeing a graduate degree.
Ms. Miller.
Well, Mr. Hackett, is there anything about this use that is more intense than a traditional nursing home that you've worked on?
Objection. Same basis.
Nursing homes in general are not very.
Wait a minute. Same basis?
He's offering, yes, sir, I object to this witness offering opinion comparing the relative intensity of the proposed use to a nursing home that was approved in the year 1990, 33 years ago.
I did not ask him.
The question was about his experience in projects that he was directly involved with, if my understanding.
That is correct, Mr. Bale. I am not asking Mr. Hackett to state anything about the previous BZA decision, just nursing homes in general and his experience.
Okay. Well, I'll allow him to answer the question.
Thank you.
Are you paid for your testimony?
Absolutely, I hope so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Last question. Have any of the projects you've done in Carroll County been for a drug addiction facility?
We're currently working on another one.
Okay.
Just so the record is clear, you and I are agreeing right now that you have no knowledge as to what, if any, nursing care the applicant would provide at the proposed drug rehab facility.
I don't know the level of nursing care he's providing. I haven't been briefed on what it is. My understanding of nursing care is basically someone who is assisting someone who needs help in very difficult times.
How many nurses will be there?
I have no idea.
All right. Now, let's go to the next line. Supervision to, what's the next word?
Well, we were personal care and supervision to the aged.
To what?
To the aged.
To aged. Now, as your role as zoning administrator, how do you interpret that word, aged?
Anyone born between being born and to whenever they die. I mean.
Wait a minute. Called you down before, I'm going to call you down again, and I'll clear the room if I have to. This is his testimony under oath. Respect it.
Question, sir, is how do you, what does the word in this definition, aged, mean? Does that mean a young adolescent in high school who's addicted to drugs?
I would generally say no, but like I say, there's no limit to what you would refer to as aged.
Okay. But you would agree that most people reading this definition, when they see the phrase aged, they would think when it's in the context of a nursing home, elderly person, would they not?
Elderly? I don't think I would say elderly.
All right, how about an 18-year-old boy who has a misfortune of being addicted to drugs? Would he be, in your parlance, an aged patient?
Not necessarily, no.
Sir, my question, pardon me, was very precise. Can you share with this board, based on your years of experience in this county, one example where an applicant has petitioned, prior to this case, petitioned the Board of Zoning Appeals to say, we have a 33-year-old approval for a conditional use, and we want to step into that approval with a drug rehab facility? Conditional use for a nursing home.
I can't think any of, right at the moment, I don't have all the case files in front of me to say whether there was or not.
So you don't know? You can't
I
give us an
can't
example.
recall any.
Right, that's all I have, thank you.
I'll be brief. My name is Michael Guerin. I'm here as a citizen, and I'm also here as the District 4 County Commissioner representative of these fine people here. I'm here in opposition of this application because I feel very strongly, having lived in Carroll County since 1984 and knowing that area well, that it is incompatible with that particular neighborhood. And I want to address the issue of traffic. Before you, you'll see a traffic memorandum back from 2008. There was an issue back in 2008. For those of you who are familiar with Krimgold Park, it's a wonderful park, but we can't use all the fields there because back in 2008, we decided to use the fields. We went to the Mount Airy Maryland Transportation Department, and they did a traffic study and said we couldn't use those fields at Krimgold Park because the area of Route 94 from Krimgold to 26 is too crowded. That was in 2008. I would direct your eyes to number 3 on this particular memorandum where it says, before anything happens at Krimgold to increase usage, and talk about improving site. I need to improve my site. Improve site distance at the intersection of Woodbine Road and Buckhorn Road. So my concern here is a traffic concern. Obviously, I have other concerns as well.
But let's just talk about the burden of proof. The witness, the applicant, looked at page 2 of his Exhibit 2, pointed to a house owned by my client, and said, that's part of my facility. This witness said, that house owned by my client, which my client has restored over the past 30 years, he said, he has so little understanding of this site that he didn't even know that wasn't part of his facility. I think that's relevant to the burden of proof. It's certainly relevant to how my clients view the applicant's understanding of their community if they point to a nearby house and say that's the drug rehab center. Let's talk about the legal question. Is a drug rehab facility a nursing home? We say no. Here's why. We've talked about the definition of nursing home. We could probably all recite it from memory now, can't we? I won't do that again, but we have that in the ordinance. We've talked about the fact that there's no definition in the zoning ordinance for a residential addictions center. I pointed out to you in my opening remarks that the zoning ordinance does use in the same section the phrase nursing home and drug rehab facility, and says neither is allowed in industrial park. My point is that's an example of how the county commissioners, the legislators who enacted this ordinance, they recognized that these were two uses. They described them separately in the industrial park section, said that each is prohibited. Council says, oh, it's a red herring, it's an oversight, we'll clean that up, don't worry about it. I say as an advocate of my clients, that's evidence that the commissioners, in their minds, saw these as separate uses.
So we are left with, we have approval for a nursing home. It does not ever go away. So the only question for me is if this use meets the definition of a nursing home. And to that end, Mr. Voigt, the Carroll County zoning administrator, who I have utmost respect for, indicates that it does meet the criteria for a nursing home. That's his interpretation. And I think that there was sufficient evidence, notably the definitions, the general definitions relative to the code, that suggests that that is an appropriate conclusion.
There is no separate definition for a drug-related facility, and the code is not perfect by any means. A catch-all, as being presented here, you can't define every possibility out there. So, according to the zoning administrator, he thought the nursing home was the best fit, and I see that as being true.
On the amended motion.
Can I hear the motion again? Can you do it, Richard?
Yes. In case number 6447 before the Board of Zoning Appeals, that the board approve the request for affirmation of the Board of Zoning Appeals' previous decisions to confirm that a residential addiction service facility is permitted under previous approvals for a nursing home.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Our oral decision will become final upon a written decision which will be issued within 30 days unless otherwise extended by this board. A board's decision may be appealed by filing a petition for judicial review with the clerk of the circuit court for Carroll County in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 200, Title 7 of the Maryland Rules of Procedure. The appeal must be filed within 30 days of the date of the board's written decision.
Just so the record is clear, you and I are agreeing right now that you have no knowledge as to what, if any, nursing care the applicant would provide at the proposed drug rehab facility.
I don't know the level of nursing care he's providing. I haven't been briefed on what it is. My understanding of nursing care is basically someone who is assisting someone who needs help in very difficult times.
How many nurses will be there?
I have no idea.
All right.
Well, but we were personal care and supervision to the aged.
To what?
To the aged.
To aged. Now, as your role as zoning administrator, how do you interpret that word, aged?
Anyone born between being born and to whenever they die. I mean,
How about an 18-year-old boy who has a misfortune of being addicted to drugs? Would he be, in your parlance, an aged patient?
not necessarily, no.